honestly, I don't even know where to start with this. So I guess I'm just gonna start talking. Hello everybody and welcome to Pigknit. If you're not familiar with my channel, nice to meet you. My name is Jessie. It all started when my college roommate Megan asked me to do a wall art illustration for her that was revolved around a poem that she found online and liked. Now, normally I don't do commission jobs, like I don't really like to do commission jobs, but this was something that I was like interested in trying out. I thought I could do it with watercolor, so I decided to give it a go, and it ended up just becoming another one of the parts of my watercolor series that some of you have been following, where I try to learn how to watercolor and you guys get to learn from my mistakes because I make plenty of them. The theme of her nursery was airplanes and clouds and hot air balloons, so I was like, I'm gonna try to do a hot air balloon thing and let's see how it goes. If you have been following my channel for a little while, you would know that my comfort zone feels safest using digital media. So I'm a big fan of Photoshop. I like to draw digitally. There are a lot of reasons why I prefer it over traditional, and this experience is one of them. I decided to design everything in Photoshop first. And since it was 11 by 14 and I can't print bigger than US letter paper, I had to like stitch it together sort of with tape. And then I traced it onto a mixed media paper that I thought, I don't even think I have footage of me doing this because it was just such a big disaster. That paper was too thin, not toothy enough. The gradient, the whole point was to have a smooth gradient of light blue to white from the bottom going up, and it was just all streaky and it just looked terrible and just not good. That was an instant fail, so that was attempt number one. So back to the drawing board, I still had my paper, I still could trace onto something else. So I switched to this paper that my mom had given me, this pile of watercolor paper that I think is expensive, I don't know, she knows what she's doing. So there were these big pieces of watercolor paper, and this was one that is a lot thicker. I'm familiar with this paper, I've worked with this paper before. I think it's a cold press, it's very textured, it's very thick. Like very thick cardstock. So I got the gradient to work out, and then I did the hot air balloon, and like it was one of those things where I thought I was gonna like look back and be like ta-da, and instead I looked back at it and I was like, I don't like this. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it. This happens to me a lot when I'm designing flyers. When you're designing online, you don't realize how big something is until it prints out. So like I could be designing a flyer, and then when you print it out you realize like, holy crap, 48 font is enormous, you know, but you don't notice because you're looking at this little screen and it's a nice design. That's kind of what happened to this. I think the design was too simple. I think the hot air balloon was too big. I didn't like all of the colors that I used, even though I was following her color design for her room, her color scheme. I thought it was just like too much color going on. I didn't like the sharp contrast between the black lettering and the balloon, and then I added some cross hatching and stuff to see if I could even it out a little, and I didn't like that either. So attempt number two was a fail. So back to the drawing board, I went back into Photoshop, changed my design, added more balloons, made the big balloons smaller, so I had 3 different size balloons, added a couple of clouds, and now this time I was going to have to use masking fluid because I was going to be painting around interesting shapes that were going to be difficult. Not really familiar with masking fluid. I've only used it one time before and I was like, okay, here we go. And actually that turned out pretty well. I had bought these rubber tip tools from Amazon. I got a pack of 5, and I've seen people use these before for watercolor masking fluid, and it seems like it works out well because the first time I tried using masking fluid, I just used one of my old brushes and I like just murdered that brush. I retraced my new design, had to retape it all together, had to retrace onto this new paper that, as it turns out, my mom had given me a different type of watercolor paper that I didn't even know was in that bag, and this paper was in between the two thicknesses and in between the two texture-wise. So I was like, all right, let's try this one. And the gradient was, I mean, it was in between the two. It wasn't good. I didn't like it. You could still see some paintbrush marks, which I don't like. I don't want that at all. I want it, oh my god, a friend. It still had brush marks, and I wasn't happy with it, so I started to feel the usual feelings of self-doubt wash over me that I get when something's not going right, and usually when that happens you have to just put something down and like just not touch it or look at it. It was another one of those times though when I shut off the camera, because even though there's no one else in the room, if I have the camera watching me, it's kind of like having someone mouth breathe behind you and like watch what you're doing, so it still applies a certain amount of pressure to the situation. So I was like pretty ticked off at this point. I shut off the camera and I had one of these moments where instead of putting it down, I decided to be like, you know what? It's already all messed up. Let's just keep on going. So I decided to draw more clouds using the blue paint. And I honestly kind of liked it. I liked how it was looking, and I wasn't sure about it though, so I let it sit. I waited until Justin got home and asked him what he thought, and he really liked it. So I'm like, okay, artistic people sometimes is validation from others, right? Isn't that what we're all looking for? I decided to continue with this, and I was very careful with everything. I remembered that I didn't like the stark black lettering, so this time I used gray. I didn't want to go any harsher than just a medium gray color. And this time, I think it turned out. I added more detail. I didn't go as crazy with the colors. And finally, attempt number 3, I think turned out. I sent it to my friend. She loved it. And right before I was deciding to call it good, I was trimming the edges and I accidentally hacked off an extra ½ inch. So now it's 11 by 13.5. I don't think she cares, but I'm gonna be kicking myself for that for like a long time. So what did I learn from this experience? Facing a harsh reality of having to redo. That's why I don't like traditional mediums, because you can't just undo. You have to redo everything from scratch. My biggest takeaway is that you need to really make sure you measure before you cut the edges of paintings, because you never know. They always say measure twice, cut once, right? That about wraps it up for this adventure. I'm hoping that my next watercolor video goes a little smoother with less redos, perhaps. That'd be nice. If you guys liked this video, or if you liked how this painting turned out, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment below letting me know what's going really well for you right now, because during times like this, when you have frustrating moments and you have to redo things over and over and over and you're feeling down on yourself, the only thing that you can sometimes do is take time to notice what's going well for you and what's working effortlessly. I guess for me, one thing I was thinking as I was working on this, I was listening to a Disney Pandora station.
Oh, it's a lot, the hair, the bod, when you're staring at a demigod.
By the way, you guys are lucky I didn't know the words to that song, because I would have been singing my heart out. I was thinking to myself, how lucky am I that for a living I can blast Disney songs and sing aloud to them in the comfort of my home, you know? Not a lot of people get to say that, and I feel like really fortunate to be able to do that. So what's going really well for you in your life? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.